to our next episode on the long series that we've been involved in, and we're going to continue to be involved in because it's really, really important, talking about how to transmute your body into a powerhouse.
Yes.
And before I go on, Bersabeh, let's go back. If you're just joining us for the first time, you might ask the question, why do I want to transmute my body into a powerhouse? Why ultimately do we want our bodies to be a powerhouse? What's the purpose of that?
Is so that you could become a better conduit for the Spirit of God, or God to work through you.
Absolutely. To become a better conduit, a better vehicle. Mm-hmm. So today we're going to talk about cutting out all alcohol and stimulants.
Oh.
And depending upon where you are on this subject, it might be a bit sensitive, but, just because you don't like something doesn't mean it's not true. Now, here's something that's really interesting to consider.
Call this something else.
Do you remember during 2020, during what was going on during 2020, and I'm sure you know what that was, that liquor stores, strip clubs, and pot dispensaries were allowed to remain open?
Yeah.
During the lockdown. But you know what wasn't allowed to remain open? Businesses.
And churches.
Now, that seems kind of odd, doesn't it? Now, we're not going to address strip clubs today. That whole issue, we might be able to talk about it in a different episode, but we encourage you to draw your own conclusions. What we will briefly discuss in this particular part of our series is the issue of alcohol, drugs, and all types of stimulants.
Sure.
Now, this might not be popular to some people because they've been conditioned in a very different way, but it is powerful if you just hang with us. So just hang with us, keep an open mind, and then if you don't agree with us, that's okay. Mm-hmm. But just keep an open mind. And let's talk about alcohol first. Now, alcohol has been illegal for a long, long time. And it's become part of our social construct.
Sure.
Now, Bersabeh and I have not had a drink for, 3 years now?
About 3 years now.
3 years. And we never drank a lot, but we used to have a nice glass of wine with a nice Italian dinner.
I did.
And you drank, at one point.
I used to, before I met you.
Before she met me, and I helped her clean up her act. But we never really drank that much. But now for 3 years, we've been totally, is that what they call on the wagon?
On the wagon?
On the wagon, off the wagon. We don't drink.
Wagon?
We don't drink.
Is there an alcohol wagon?
But I think there is. But that's irrelevant right now.
Okay.
But the question is, why has this been legal for a long time? Now, while some say they drink to suppress pain.
Sure.
Or supposedly to, quote, take the edge off. We've heard that one a lot.
Yes.
I need to take the edge off at the end of the day.
Sure.
The fact is there are a multitude of harmful effects on your body that alcohol produces, and that's just a fact. It definitely hinders deep sleep. It certainly doesn't help it. And
it's actually causing you to have that edge to begin with that you need to take off.
That's right. It's the cause of the edge that you use that to get rid of the edge that creates more of the edge. If you follow that.
Yeah.
And so, if you say you're taking the edge off at the end of the day, you're not, because you're not getting good sleep, which creates more edge and more need to take off the edge. Hopefully you follow that. It's fascinating to consider that alcohol, and maybe you have a different experience of this given where you grew up, Bersabeh, which was very different than where I grew up. But alcohol, where I grew up, and the circles I was in, is the only drug. And by the way, it is a drug. Whether you like it or not, it's a drug. That you must come up with an argument or an excuse to not partake of.
Sure, I think that's
pretty true.
Yeah, in all circles.
Okay, so why is that? How many times have you heard or experienced something like, oh, come on, just have one drink with me?
Yeah, it's not going to kill you.
It's not going to kill you. There's social pressure.
Right.
The fact is that alcohol does and will kill you.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fact. Now, you may not like hearing that, but that just because you don't like it doesn't make it untrue. Let's just give you a few of the facts about alcohol. First of all, alcohol kills what's in your gut. What's the most important? That's
microbiome.
Right. Microbiome in your gut. Now, we know how important microbiome is to overall physical and mental health. Mm-hmm. According to research at Cleveland Clinic and a multitude of others, microbiome is vitally important to overall physical health. The bacteria in your gut affects everything from proper digestion to your mental health.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, most recent research proves that alcohol begins where, Bersabeh?
Alcohol begins.
I'm sorry, Alzheimer's begins.
I'm like, I don't know.
Alcohol
Potatoes?
begins in a field.
I'm not sure.
I don't know. Depends on which kind. Alzheimer's begins where?
It's in the gut.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's not in the brain. In fact, many scientists are now calling your gut your second brain.
True.
And it's estimated, get this, there are approximately 100 trillion microbes in the human body, and a major part of them reside in your gut. Primarily in your large and small intestine, things like yeast, viruses, bacteria, fungi. Now, these sound like they're undesirable.
Fungi?
Yeah, fungus. But they are imperative to your health. If you kill them, you're not going to be healthy. And alcohol kills all of these, leaving your immune system weakened, your metabolism hampered, and it causes inflammation in the body. What is inflammation in the body a leading cause of, Bersabeh? Death. It literally is.
Yeah.
Now, don't take our word for it. Dr. Dan Amen.
His name is Dan?
Yeah, I believe so.
I don't know.
Amen is for sure, but I believe it's Dan Amen.
I don't know first name.
Has scanned the brains of thousands of drinkers, and his research proves that alcohol shuts down and atrophies the executive center of your brain.
Mm-hmm.
Even one glass of alcohol inhibits the formulation of new brain cells.
Yikes.
Which eventually leads to permanent brain damage.
Sure.
And to neurological disorders.
Oy.
And this is according not just to Dan Amen, but to the National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism. Now, unfortunately, prenatal exposure, in other words, while you were in your mother's womb, to alcohol is a determining factor as well. So if your parents drank, or your mother or your dad, while you were in the womb, you were negatively affected by that, even before your birth. And you say, well, then I'm just screwed.
No.
You know, you thought that at one point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Not true.
It's
right?
not true.
It's not true.
You can change it.
You can change it. We could go on, but hopefully, you know, well, one other thing I'll give you is that moderate use, even moderate use. Well, I'm not a big drinker, James and Bersabeh. You know, I'm
a glass of wine. It's healthy.
A glass of wine is supposed to be healthy, according to whom? Yeah. You know, and compared to what? You know, even modern use is associated with the shrinkage of the hippocampus in your brain. Even moderate use. And what's the hippocampus do? It plays a major role in learning and memory. So if you have a hard time learning and you have a hard time with your memory, it could be because of the alcohol you're consuming. Now, we could go on again, but hopefully we've made the point. The other issue we'll briefly discuss here is, drumroll please, marijuana. Now, this may be even more unpopular than the wine topic, possibly.
I think it is, because it's the big hype right now.
That's right. You know, no matter how it's been spun, it's a drug. It's been sold hard in the last few years since legalization. But again, the question is why?
Sure.
Why? Why is that happening? Why is alcohol available during 2020, but church and businesses are not? Dan Amen, again, Dr. Dan Amen, going back to him, has also conducted thousands of brain scans on pot smokers. And what his research has proven is that the same brain issues as wine and alcohol, all alcohol, by the way, atrophy the executive function, along with a decrease of function of pot in every single area of your brain.
Yikes.
A decrease in function. Pot tends to lull you, and if you've experienced it, you know this, lull you into kind of a comatose state.
That is very true.
Of counterproductivity.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever known, you've probably known more pot smokers than I have, Bersabeh. Have you ever known a pot smoker who was incredibly driven?
No.
No, an absolute go-getter.
No, someone who smoked pot all the time.
Yeah.
No. I mean, look at Snoop.
Excited about life and life in general? Most probably not. Today's marijuana, and this is a fact as well, is stronger than it used to be.
That's true.
And it's more addictive than ever before.
That is true, too.
And regardless of what some may tell you, you do become addicted.
That is very true.
Very true. How many times have you had someone say to you, well, I could quit any time. Okay, do it.
I don't want to.
It's not, I don't want to. I'm not ready. Okay, it's not that easy.
No.
Now, here are just a few of the known effects of marijuana. Marijuana can cause permanent IQ loss of as much as 8 points when people start using it at a young age.
Oh, man.
Permanent.
8 points gone.
8 points gone.
Forever.
These IQ points do not come back even after quitting marijuana.
Oh, boy.
They just don't. Now, studies also link marijuana to depression.
That's true.
Anxiety.
Anxiety, for sure.
Suicidal planning.
Yes.
Psychotic episodes.
Absolutely.
And without going into, if you've seen any of our podcasts that we've been guests on, Bersabeh has told her story on many of them, and we don't need to go into her story, but she came up in a really rough environment, and she has a lot of experience with these things we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And so when she's being my amen quarter over there when I talk about depression, anxiety, suicidal planning, psychotic
yes, I've
episodes,
gone through all of them.
She's experienced all of those things.
Sure.
Research shows that marijuana affects timing and movement, coordination, which can harm athletic performance. Now, one of the most ludicrous things I've ever heard is athletes saying, well, I smoke pot for recuperation.
Yeah,
what?
I never got that.
I
thought about it.
It's ridiculous.
No, I thought about it, and I've tried like before and after, and it's like you feel horrible after. So how is that helping you recoup? I don't get it.
Yeah. You don't get it because it's a good excuse. People who drive under the influence of marijuana, don't do that, can experience dangerous effects.
Yeah, that's not good.
Slow reactions, lane weaving, decreased coordination, difficulty reacting to signals and sounds on the road. Mm-hmm. Here's another one. Use during pregnancy may cause fetal growth restriction. It may cause premature birth. Mm. It may cause stillbirth and problems with brain development in the child. It can also result in hyperactivity, in poor cognitive function, all in the child, those of you moms out there. THC and other chemicals from marijuana can also be passed from mother to her baby through breast milk.
Sure.
Further impacting a child's healthy development.
Yeah.
There's more. Research shows that people who use marijuana are more likely to have relationship problems. They have worse educational outcomes. They have lower career achievement and reduced overall life satisfaction. As with alcohol, there's more. There really is more, but we're going to leave it here for today. There are obviously more drugs and stimulants as well that we could discuss as well, but these are the most popular and most widely used. So we'll just throw that out there for you to consider and end it here today. Now back to the question of why were these accessible during 2020? And why have these been promoted and encouraged so strongly? Well, here's something to consider. Just consider it. With more and more of our liberties being taken away, is it possible that there are people in power that know if they can keep a major portion of the population sick and stupefied, they're much easier to control?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I haven't met a pot smoker who is like a warrior wanting to fight. They're more about, no, let's have peace.
Unity.
Come sit with me. Let's, let's all get along.
Right. So, a population that is sick and stupefied, which alcohol and marijuana definitely make you do, we've given you all the research and the evidence, are a lot easier to control. They're a lot easier to instill fear in. Is it possible? Well, you be the judge.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You be the judge. Hopefully, this has been valuable for you. We want to thank you for a couple moments of your day, and we'll come back and see you next week, continuing on how to turn your body into a powerhouse. God bless. Lots of love.